Hello and welcome to today's video. So it's something a little bit different this time, where we take a more detailed look at Final Burn Alpha. Now I've got rather a lot of games on my Final Burn Alpha section on my Steam Deck here, well over 1,000, and I have recently updated the list of games so that we've got box art, if there was some. We get to see what the arcade machines look like, if that's where they're from, and also we get a little trailer, like a little glimpse of what the game might be like if we were to launch it. And this is coming through Emulationstation, which is like the front end, and we're scraping this art from like a box scraper website, and I've done that with Final Burn Alpha, particularly because a lot of these games aren't that familiar, and there's an awful lot of them, and some of them are quite obscure, so if you get the little preview, I think it's fantastic. Now, as I said, there's well over 1,000 games in my Final Burn Alpha collection, so we're only going to be doing the first few letters of the alphabet. But I've done this in the past with other systems, such as the smaller Ambernick devices, and the videos have proved very popular because you get to discover lots of hidden gems and games that you didn't really know you wanted to play until you actually saw them. The other reason I do it is because it's just not something that's been covered yet as far as I've seen on the Steam Deck, and these games do really lend themselves to really quick pick up and play. So my sort of life these days is I don't have a lot of time to devote to a major game. You know, I don't have 50 hours spare. I just don't at the moment. I work full time. I do 3 or 4 videos on YouTube a week, so I've got quite a busy lifestyle at the moment. So because of that, I enjoy games that I can just pick up and play, you know, without a moment's notice. Don't have to give it too much thought. Quick arcade style hits is what Final Burn Alpha is really sort of famous for, and these were like classic arcade hits from back in the day. Now, I thought it might be quite interesting, if you've never really come across Final Burn Alpha before, if I was to give you like a little history of what it's about. Now, as you can see right now, I'm just going through my list of games, and if they've got a little preview, I'll play it. And I'm just getting an idea of if it's a game that I might want to actually just dive into. And I won't, when I go into games, I won't play much more than, say, 30 to 60 seconds of it, just so you get like a little taster. And as I said, all the games are clearly visible, so you know which ones I'm playing. And if you see any that you fancy, well, you can just make a note of it on your particular Steam Deck. And if you think there's any that I've missed during these first few letters of the alphabet, do let me know, and I'll go back and maybe I'll do a follow-up video down the line. But this is very much part 1 of looking at Final Burn Alpha on the Steam Deck, and I reckon to comfortably do the entire ROM set, which is readily available. It's very easy to find the Final Burn Alpha ROM set online. I don't know, to do it justice, it would probably take 10 videos. Well, we've not got 10 videos. I've got lots of other systems to cover, but this is potentially the first of a series. So if you do like it, don't forget to give it the thumbs up, and do leave a comment down below if this is a bit of classic gaming is what sort of tickles your fancy. So, a little bit about Final Burn Alpha, although I've got to admit this was a really good game once I figured out what was actually going on, and that's half the battle with these. A lot of these were arcade games which were designed for that quick hit, and you do need to sort of figure out how to actually play them before you get stuck in. But Final Burn Alpha, or FBA as it's more commonly known, is just an emulator of arcade games. That is, it takes the program code, the graphics, the data, etc. from an original arcade game or cabinet and emulates the hardware to make the game run in its original form. As far as the game is concerned, it's in its original cabinet. So this is the original code, often taken direct from the circuit boards and emulated to look as original as possible to the original arcade cabinet. Now, Final Burn Alpha itself was first released in August in the year 2000. And the first game it was able to emulate was Afterburner, that classic Sega game, which we will actually have a look at in a minute. and later it added support for other Sega classics such as Rail Chase and Galaxy Force 2. Updates to the emulator were frequent and caused a real buzz in the emulator scene. So if you cast your mind back 20 years, even back then, in fact, even in the late 90s, I was using emulators and MAME emulators, which is the multiple arcade machine emulator, on my Windows machines. So I've always had emulators pretty much since, I reckon, the mid-90s, and I just really, really love them. So Final Burn Alpha itself supports pretty much all the arcade platforms. So you've got the Capcom CPS 1, 2 and 3. You've got the Cave one, Data East and all the Data East based games that came out on Galaxium based hardware and the IREM hardware, Kaneko 16 and all the Konami games. So that's a huge selection of real classic games. Here is Afterburner now, by the way. This is the very first game ever to get emulated in Final Burn Alpha. You've got all the Neo Geo games, which are absolutely immense. That's a huge library in itself. And collecting Neo Geo cartridges sure is an expensive business. And I've had a couple through my hands over the years, and they're absolutely massive. Each one is like its own console. But they're... nowadays, of course, you can just slip them in onto your Steam Deck. The files are absolutely tiny. NMK16, all the Pac-Man based hardware, that's various games related to that, PGM, Psycho 68 EC020 and SK2 based hardware, Sega System 1, so these are Sega ones, this is what we're looking at now, System 16 and similar, System 18, X-board and Y-board, Super Kaneko Nevo system, Teoplan 1 and 2, Taito boards, so Taito F2, X, Z and others, and loads of miscellaneous like one-off drivers for like one-off systems, where it was almost built, well, literally as a one-off or just for a handful of games. Final Burn Alpha can also emulate, although there's no real point to do that these days, but it can also emulate some of the home consoles such as Sega Mega Drive, Genesis, ColecoVision, the Sega SG-1000, the Master System, Game Gear, and also PC Engine and the TurboGrafx 16 Super Graphics. Now, I've got my TurboGrafx 16 games separated, and that's another system that we will have a look at in due course. But for now, we'll just concentrate on Final Burn Alpha. And already, as I think you've seen, there's a real selection of stuff. There's an awful lot of shmucks, so shoot 'em ups. There's lots of those. There's quite a lot of sort of top-down shooters, sort of in the vein of 1942. You've got this one. This is great. This is Aliens v Predator, and this is a sideways sort of beat 'em up along the lines of say Street Fighter. There's lots of those sorts of games. So if there was ever if you could put Final Burn Alpha, you could say it's mainly shmucks, top-down shooters, this sort of side-scroller game. There's a few racing games, but they seem to be quite few and far between. Maybe it was a bit harder to pull off, or I just haven't come across them yet. And then you've got a mixture of the real classic arcade games, so we will see a couple of those today. Certainly plenty that I remember. As a kid in the 80s, I would go to the arcade as much as I possibly could and check in with all the video games and just love it, absolutely love it. And I'm glad to see that all my favourites are included in Final Burn Alpha. For some reason, I've just enjoyed Final Burn Alpha a bit more than MAME, and I think it's because of the unknown. There was so much that came out around the world. There's so much localized. I'm in the UK. There was loads that we didn't get. So it's nice to see stuff from around the world that potentially we missed. But as you can see, being able to have a little preview of each game before you actually click on it definitely pays dividends. Now, when I click on a game, I'm then in the editing stage. I do jump ahead a bit, because when you click on a game, you've got to insert coin, which you do with the start button. So you press that a couple of times, that puts the money in, and then with the select button on the Steam Deck, that just starts the game. Now, in most cases, I've had to use the the buttons rather than the joystick. It's just how it is. A couple of them though have even used the trigger buttons, so one of the racing games later on actually used the trigger buttons, so I don't know what was going on there. I'm assuming you could just map each individual game if you wanted to, but you know, I've not got that far into it. This is Anteater. I wanted to give this one a go because I do vaguely remember playing it back in the day, but it doesn't play. It's a really frustrating game rather, and it took me a little bit of time to figure out how to play it, and by that time I was dead. Not to worry. One of my favourites was Arkanoid. I didn't fire it up, but I have done previous to filming this video, and unfortunately the controls were just too sensitive, so I wasn't able to control the bat to play Arkanoid properly, and I didn't really see an obvious way to sort of slow down the speed of the bat at the bottom. So if you know yourself, I know I've got very knowledgeable viewers of this channel and on my videos, so if you leave a comment, often I'll pin that comment if it's really helpful, and you are helping the rest of the Steam Deck community, so thanks very much for doing that, and thanks to the people in the past who've done that as well, because it really does help out. This is a pretty good one. As you can see, it's like literally all out destruction on the ground as well as in the air, and right from the off you just got a very, very powerful ship. It's not like some of these ones, these shmucks, where you start quite weedy and you've got like a single bullet and you have to upgrade your ship, you know, over the course of the game. This one, you're pretty powerful right from the start, so I like that. I like that. But there's just so many, isn't there? So many games, and not that I'm complaining at all of it, but when you've got a Steam Deck and you've got Emulationstation and you've filled it up with your ROM collection, boy oh boy, you know, you realise just how many games you've got to play with. You're never going to be short of something to play. Now, I was going to be playing PlayStation 2 today for this week's video, but I decided against it because I've really just not been able to get PS2 performance up to scratch. So, you know, I've got 20 odd games on my Steam Deck ready to rock and roll and demonstrate for you, but I need to get it wired up on, get my mouse and keyboard and get it into desktop mode and go into the settings for the PS2 emulator, because they play alright. It's really sort of laggy and buggy with the sound, and I'm so used to playing PS2 games smoothly now on my phone using the Aether SX2 emulator, which plays PS2 games fantastically well. I'm just not prepared to sit through and play with the sound so awful and it being so jittery. So once I've got it perfected, I will definitely be back, and we'll be playing some PS2. I mean, it is just about possible to play PlayStation 3, but it's still quite early days yet. Same goes for Xbox 360, although the original Xbox is just about playable these days, so that's pretty good news. So I'm working, next video is actually going to be a video looking at Emulationstation, so it's not going to be on an actual particular system. It's just going to be how I've managed to get the very best out of Emulationstation with having, once I've got my ROMs on, having all this box art and little videos of the game before you actually play it. So I'll be showing you how to set that up next time. It's really quite straightforward, but it's worth doing because look at the time it's saved, and you could literally spend hours just going through each game. So if they say you chose the Game Boy or Game Boy Color, you hundreds and hundreds of games, Game Boy Advance. If you put the entire library on there, you could spend hours just going through the thumbnails and watching the little video clips, couldn't you? And I think it's brilliant fun to do. They play the music, it's really, really great. So that will be the subject of next week's video, Emulationstation. But this was quite good fun. I mean, it's a bit basic, to be honest. But as I said, there's not too many driving games on the Steam Deck, but it's nice to play the odd one or two, you know? This was a bit of an extended session. I ended up filming about an hour and a quarter's worth of footage, and I've managed to edit it down to about just under half an hour. I've tried to have the videos to be no more than half an hour, but obviously if you want more, just let me know. But I have to draw a limit, and I don't want you falling asleep watching these. But it's going to give you a taster, and if you're still waiting for your Steam Deck, all I can say is I'm getting more and more out of it as I'm becoming more and more familiar with the hardware and what it can do. Because initially, there's no two ways around it. It can be a little bit overwhelming, and that's not a joke. There's so much to set up on it initially, and finding your way around the system does take a little bit of time. Lots of people comment on the battery life, and because I mainly use my Steam Deck in quick hits and I don't generally take it out on the road, I've not really noticed any sorts of battery issues whatsoever. But when I finish playing with it, I just plug it into the charger overnight, and in the morning take it out, and then it's ready for the next evening when I sit down. Games I'm playing quite a bit of on the PSP, it's Everybody's Golf 2, which was released as Hot Shots Golf Open T, I think, in America. And I'm playing a round or two of golf literally every day. I'm really hooked on that one at the moment. I'm playing a little bit of, I think it's called Vampire Survivors, which is it was only like a little $2.99 game, but it's quite a bit of fun. I recently bought Doom, and this is Doom from 2017, because I wanted a really sort of up-to-date, powerful first-person shooter, and that is an awful lot of fun. I tell you, it really is. I've got a few other games on the horizon that I've got possibly wish-listed. I'm waiting for them to come on sale. One of them is Tunic, which is quite a unique sort of puzzle platforming sort of game. The Lego Star Wars game, the new one, Skywalker Saga. I'm sorely tempted with that, and it's just gone on sale. So it's $29.99 instead of $39.99. So I'm quite tempted with that one. But once again, I don't really have the time to really sink and invest into it right now. So I think I'm just going to wait. My boy's got it on his Xbox, and I've watched him play it, and it's just a superb game. So yeah, it does come recommended. And some of these I've definitely played before, and I've not bothered to fire them up. You can't play everything. I mean, this video would be so long, wouldn't it? Be 50 hours long if I jumped into every single game. But I hope by what I'm doing here, you're at least getting a bit of a taster of literally just the start of the alphabet. So as I said, to confidently do Final Burn Alpha justice and have a look at the entire ROM set, you are looking at probably the best part of 8 to 10 videos. But I might, depending on how well this one does, and if you're looking for a bit more content on Final Burn Alpha, which I'm happy to provide, I'll definitely do a few more and see how we get on. This game was great, a real revelation, bit of a psychedelic trip, platformer, which once again, there isn't loads of platformers, but there are some, of course. But this is one of the better ones. I really enjoyed this, and it's one I'll go back to. I don't really know how to liken it. It's almost like sort of weird Alice in Wonderland sort of graphics, isn't it? But it's good. It's colourful. And of course, in a lot of these, because they're arcade games, almost all of them have got continues. So you've got unlimited credits. You can just keep the machine stocked up with credits and just keep hitting continue and work your way right through the game. You don't have to worry about running out of money. Your only thing to consider is, if you want to spend a certain amount of time on a particular game to see it through to the end. But it's nice to have that option. And it's amazing to think that we're still only on the Bs. Crazy, isn't it? It just gives you an idea of just how many ROMs are in the Final Burn Alpha ROM set, which you shouldn't have too much trouble to find if you just go onto Google, type in Final Burn Alpha ROM set. Any one will do. Just whack it then into there's already a folder created when you install EmuDeck called FBA, Final Burn Alpha. Stick all your ROMs in there, and Emulationstation will do the rest. Now initially you are just going to have that list, but then if you get up the scraper tool, you will be able to populate it with all the artwork like I've done, and it just takes it to another level. Really, really enjoyable. On the Amberneck devices, the best that the scrapers could come up with was just a still image, but even that gave you a bit of an idea if it was like a shooter or a puzzle game or a driving game. With this, the fact that you've got little video clips as well is really, really something. I mean, absolutely fantastic. And there's loads more I just skipped over because, you know, how many more shooters do you need to see to get an idea of what this machine can do? And obviously I've not bothered putting any overlays onto the screen because everything, these devices are so old. These machines that they're emulating, they're over 20 years old. They're absolutely, totally and utterly pixel perfect. But you knew that anyway. Blombicar. This one was in French, so once again, there's no way in a million years I would have had chance to have played this one back in the day, although, you know, I did go to France, I suppose, when I was a teenager, but I've never played it, and this is just an example that there is nothing. There is European stuff, there's Japanese titles that you may not have come across. It's just fantastic, such a good emulator, and when it hasn't really been developed since about 2018. It sort of reached a point where there was nothing else left to do on it. Everything runs perfectly. So the code for the emulator is actually open source, and occasionally you do get an update on it, which all I can assume is that this is being played through RetroArch, of course. That when it does get updated, RetroArch updates itself accordingly. This was a great one, and although I never played it at the time, I've played it about 3 times now, trying to get a little bit further. So you're just basically set in the Old West there, and you just got to shoot as many of the bad guys and avoid the good guys as possible. But it's really, really good fun. Really enjoyed this one. You just got your little cross target on the front there. Shame you don't move, but you know, you got to remember when these games were being made. They are fairly old. But yeah, I really have enjoyed this one. It's one of my favourites that I played. And as you can hear, the sound is just perfect. It is almost like being back in an 80s arcade, which is, you know, very, very nostalgic. It's brilliant fun. This was stage 2. I had to show you just a little bit of the second stage. It's just really great. Really, really good fun, this one. Cool stuff. As we work our way through the last few of the bees. As I said, I did go through them first time round, and there was a few that I tried which I haven't included this time round because I didn't think they were up to snuff. Quite a few Tetris clones I found. Obviously cashed in on the popularity of the Game Boy at that time. There's bound to be a few of those, like video poker, like that one there. You forget how big those were back in the day. Wrestling games I don't tend to play. Baseball games I don't tend to play. This is one I do remember playing back in the day, Bomb Jack. And I do believe with Final Burn Alpha that you can actually turn your Steam Deck so it's vertical. It's a bit of an awkward beast to hold vertically, but I believe it is possible to do it the same as you can do that on MAME. And you can play these original cabinet games, sort of the correct rotation. But to be honest, these are quite playable. The Steam Deck screen is not small, so these are quite playable, exactly as you're seeing it here. But if you really want to, you can have them vertically, which is cool. It's just nice to have an option, isn't it? Last few little games now to have a look at. this is the end of the bees. And there was so many. This video could have easily have been twice as long as it was. But I know you value your time. But yeah, if you are due a Steam Deck, if yours is on the way and you've got your pre-order in, all I can say is, without buying a single game brand new for your Steam Deck, if you just hit the emulation route, you've got so much that you can have in one really, really compact system. You're never going to be short of something to play. But the fact that it can play all the latest AAA games as well is just fantastic. And that is not to be underestimated. It's really, really good. So, as I said, next week I'm going to be doing a short video looking at how to get the best out of Emulationstation, and I'll show you all the different systems that I've got, which have been set up a bit like this, where to go on the website, how to register and all the rest of it. You know, well worth doing. So you play one of my all-time classic arcade games, Bubble Bobble, which obviously plays literally perfectly. Big favourite of mine, this game. And then once we had a look at Emulationstation, by then, hopefully, I would have tweaked the settings to get PlayStation 2 up and running. Once we've done that, I dearly want to get original Xbox working. I've had a real hankering to play Halo, the original Halo, on my Steam Deck. So if that's at all possible, which I believe it is, then I want to pursue it. So that was pretty much the end of the bees. And then I thought, just to round us out, as I finish off this video, we play one of my favourite games beginning with C, and then we'll call this the last one. This is Cadillacs and Dinosaurs. I believe this was, this was a very, very good comic back in the day. I think there may have been an animated series tying in with it, but boy oh boy, this is one hell of a shooter. Hell of a fighter, I should say, rather. Really love this one, and I played it quite some time. So there we are. So if you have enjoyed this video, do please give it that thumbs up, and do please hit the subscribe button if you've not already for regular Steam Deck content. I'm trying to do a Steam Deck video every single Wednesday, and I've got quite a list of subjects and systems that I intend to cover over the next few months. Hopefully this helps bridge the gap if you're waiting for your Steam Deck to turn up as well, and whets your appetite for what you can do on yours when yours arrives. Thank you very much for watching today, and I shall look forward to seeing you again very soon with another Steam Deck video. Bye!